You wake up and within 60 seconds it starts. Not just the phone, not just the notifications, but a deeper, low-grade hum. The internal pressure to prove something, to assert yourself, to make sure the world knows you matter. You walk out your door and you enter an invisible arena where everyone is fighting for the same scraps of attention, respect, and status. Most people think power is about volume. They think the loudest voice in the room, the strongest grip, the most aggressive display of force wins. That is not power. That is panic dressed up as confidence. The costly mistake you keep making is trying to control the world by gripping it tighter, when the real power has always been in how loosely you hold it. Here is the truth nobody wants to say out loud. True power is not something you force into the world. It is something you build by detaching from it. Consider the people around you who are always posturing, always performing, always letting everyone know how important they are. They are exhausting to be around, and if you are honest, you know they are terrified. They are terrified of being seen as weak, of being overlooked, of losing the fragile image they have spent years constructing. You do this too, in your own way. You try to outshine everyone in the room to prove you belong there. You want to show the boss you are the smartest. You want to show your peers you are the most successful. You want to show the world you are winning. But here is what nobody tells you. When you try to outshine the master, when you try to prove you are smarter, better, faster than the person above you, you are not gaining power. You are triggering their insecurity. You are painting a target on your back. The old strategists understood this implicitly. Never outshine the master. It is a law of survival in any hierarchy. If you make your superior feel small, they will use their power to make you smaller. But the Stoics took this idea and drove it into the bedrock of the human soul. They did not just advise you to play small to protect a superior's ego. They asked why you feel the need to shine in the first place. If your worth is tied to being seen as brilliant, you are a slave to their gaze. You are dependent on their applause. The Stoic reframing is this. You do not hide your light out of fear. You simply stop needing it to be seen. You do the work. You execute. You let the results speak, and you detach from the applause. That is the first power law. You rule by not needing to be seen as the ruler. You do not outshine the master because you are not competing for his light. You already have your own. You are not playing his game. You are playing a longer, deeper game where the only judge that matters is your own conscience. This brings you to the greatest living counterexample in all of human history. Marcus Aurelius. The most powerful man in the world. The Emperor of Rome. He had absolute, unchecked authority over millions of lives. He commanded armies. He controlled the treasury. He could have indulged every whim, crushed every enemy, demanded worship as a god. Instead, every morning, while the empire waited on his command, he sat down in his tent and wrote himself a reminder. He told himself that he would meet people who were arrogant, selfish, deceitful, and envious, and that none of it could touch his soul. He practiced daily detachment from the very power he held. Most people call this a morning routine. The Stoics would call it a surrender. A surrender of the ego to the work. Marcus understood something that every powerful person must eventually face. If he let the power of the throne define him, he would be destroyed by it. The throne would sit on him, not the other way around. So he held it loosely. He reminded himself that he was just a man, doing a job, subject to the same fate as the lowest peasant in his empire. This is the second power law. The most powerful person in any room is the one who can walk away from the power without losing themselves. You think your title, your salary, your status makes you who you are. The moment you believe that, you have given it all away. You have handed your identity to something external, something that can be taken in an instant by a market crash, a firing, or a scandal. Marcus did not rule Rome by gripping the throne. He ruled by being indifferent to it. He ruled by ruling himself first. Now, let us talk about your reputation. You spend so much energy curating it. You worry about what people think, what they say, how they perceive you. You build a personal brand, you manage your image, you defend your reputation like a wounded animal when someone speaks ill of you. Here is what nobody tells you. Reputation managed strategically is a tool. Reputation governed emotionally is a prison. The third power law is this. Protect your reputation, but never be ruled by it. Epictetus drew a line in the sand at the very beginning of his teaching, a line that structures the entire Stoic worldview. He said there are things within your power, and things not within your power. Your opinions, your intentions, your desires, your inner mental life. Those are yours. But your body, your property, your reputation, your office. Those are external. They are not yours. They are borrowed. When you attach your peace of mind to your reputation, you become a slave to the crowd. You spend your life performing for people whose opinions you would not respect if you heard them spoken aloud. You let strangers on the internet, or colleagues in a meeting, dictate how you feel about yourself. It is a subtle form of madness. The Stoic approach to reputation is a paradox. You guard it because it makes your work in the world easier. A good name opens doors. A reputation for integrity and competence is a powerful asset. But you do not cling to it. You do not let a slight ruin your day. You do not let a rumor break your spirit. You hold your reputation loosely enough that if it were stripped from you tomorrow, you would still know your own worth. That is the highest form of power. You use the world as game, but you do not let it use you. You play the part, you wear the mask, but underneath, you are untouched. This leads directly to the concrete practice of holding influence loosely. The fourth power law. You must be willing to walk away. This is not a theory. This is a practice you must feel in your bones. Imagine you are in a negotiation. Or a relationship. Or a job interview. The other person knows you need this deal, this love, this position. They can feel your desperation. It is in your posture, in the pitch of your voice, in the way you agree too quickly. And because they can feel it, they control you. They will push, they will lower the terms, they will disrespect you, because they know you will take it. You are not powerful in that moment. You are dependent. You are a beggar in a suit. The Stoic practice is to mentally rehearse loss. Seneca would tell you to practice poverty, to eat plain food, to sleep on a hard bed, not because comfort is evil, but because it breaks the fear of losing comfort. If you are not afraid of losing the deal, you negotiate from a position of absolute strength. If you are not afraid of losing the relationship, you love from a position of absolute freedom. You hold influence loosely enough to walk away from it without losing yourself. This is not about being cold. It is about being free. You stay in the job, you stay in the relationship, you take the deal, but you do it from a place of choice, not need. That quiet willingness to walk away is the most magnetic, terrifying power a human being can possess. People can feel it. They sense that you are not easily controlled, and they respond to you with respect. They lower their demands. They treat you better. Not because you demanded it, but because your detachment commanded it. But here is the dangerous line you must not cross. Stoic detachment versus modern apathy. This is the fifth power law, and it is where most people get the philosophy completely wrong. Detachment does not mean you do not care. Apathy means you are dead inside. Detachment means you care deeply about the right things, and you refuse to let the wrong things drain you. You care about your integrity. You care about your effort. You care about your character. You do not care about the outcome. The outcome is not yours. It never was. You do the work, you show up, you give everything you have, and then you let the chips fall where they may. Modern apathy is what you do when you are afraid. You say you do not care about the promotion because you are afraid you will not get it. You say you do not care about the relationship because you are afraid it will end. You pretend to be stoic by numbing yourself to the world. That is not stoicism. That is cowardice. The Stoics were not cowards. Marcus Aurelius led armies in freezing mud, surrounded by plague, betrayal, and war. Seneca faced his own execution without flinching, comforting his weeping friends. Epictetus was crippled by a master, and still taught that his mind was utterly free. They engaged fully with life, with all its brutality and loss, but they did not let externals dictate their inner state. They loved life without clinging to it. They fought for justice without being destroyed by injustice. That is the difference. Apathy is running away from the fire. Detachment is standing in the fire and not burning. It is the warmth of being fully alive, fully engaged, and yet completely unbound by the results. This brings you to the sixth power law. Silence and the mastery of your reactions. Most people call this a conversation. The Stoics would call it a surrender. You are in an argument. Someone insults you, challenges you, tries to provoke you. They question your intelligence, your motives, your worth. And within a fraction of a second, you react. You defend, you attack, you explain yourself. You hand over the remote control to your emotions and let the other person press the buttons. Every time you react, you lose. Every time you let anger, or pride, or the need to be right dictate your words, you give your power away. You become a puppet, and the other person is dancing you on strings. The truth nobody wants to say out loud is that your reactions are not who you are. They are habits. And habits can be broken. The space between a stimulus and your response is where your power lives. Most people have no space. The insult happens, the anger flares, the words come out. It is a straight line from trigger to reaction. The Stoic practice is to widen that space. To feel the anger rise, to notice the heat in your chest, to hear the voice in your head screaming for vengeance, and to choose not to act on it. To remain silent when every fiber of your being wants to shout. Silence is not weakness. Silence is a weapon. When you do not react, you become unpredictable. When you do not explain yourself, you become unassailable. The person who can sit with their own discomfort, who can absorb the provocation and return nothing but calm, is the person who rules the room. You do not need to win the argument. You just need to not lose yourself in it. Your silence will speak louder than their words. It will make them uncomfortable with their own noise. It will shift the power dynamic without you lifting a finger. They wanted a fight, and you gave them nothing. You gave them the void, and they fell into it. That is power. The power of the non-reactive. The power of the stone in the river. The water crashes against you, and you do not move. Eventually, the water exhausts itself, and you are still there. And this all comes back to the foundation. The seventh power law. Self-worth and self-respect. You cannot rule anything if you are ruled by external validation. You cannot hold power loosely if you are desperate for it. You cannot be detached from reputation if your entire sense of self is built on what other people think. The Stoics understood that all power in the world begins with power over yourself. Self-love is not something you feel. It is something you build through discipline. It is the quiet, unshakable knowledge that you are enough, exactly as you are, without the title, without the praise, without the applause. You wake up every day and the world tries to pull you in 100 directions. It wants you to react, to perform, to chase, to fear. And you spend so much energy fighting these currents, trying to force the world to respect you, to see you, to value you. You still do not feel whole. You still do not feel like you. Because you are looking for yourself in the eyes of other people. You are building your house on the sand of their opinions, and you wonder why you feel anxious every time the tide comes in. Stop. The power you are looking for is not out there. It never was. It is in the quiet. It is in the detachment. It is in the discipline of holding everything loosely. Your power is built in the moments when you choose not to react. Your power is built in the mornings when you remind yourself that you are enough. Your power is built in the willingness to walk away from anything that requires you to betray your own character. True power is not something you force into the world. It is something you build by detaching from it. The most powerful men in history did not shout, did not threaten, did not perform. They understood something about power that you have been getting backwards your entire life. They understood that the world only has power over you to the exact degree that you want something from it. Let go of the wanting. Hold on to the work. Be the calm in the center of the storm. Rule yourself, and you will never need to rule anyone else. Stay disciplined. Choose growth over ease.